Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. We're late. We're late for a very important date. Kill me now. Okay. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Testing, 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 testing. Okay, let's see. Dashboard. Live streaming channel. And I believe we are ready to roll. Oh, Lord, my feet. Oh, God, my feet. It's not been good. It's not been good. Okay, here we go. Here we go! We're here. We're sort of, yeah. Is there anybody here? Nobody's here. Yay. I haven't been able to get anything. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. I haven't gotten. All right, all right, all right, all right. Is anybody here? Is anybody? Yes, we've got an audience. Yes. Hello. It's me. Pardon. That was necessary. It's been several days. I wanted to spend this weekend just lying in bed, doggo, let my swelling in my legs go down. They're still swollen up. They're not as bad as they were, but they're still swollen up. They're still hurting. They hurt all the time. I'm debating a visit to the doctor, but yet another visit to the doctor. Just going any place is an ordeal right now. For anything. DVDs are pretty much done. I've just gotta wait for them. I'm waiting for them. I've ordered some labels through the mail, and they should be arriving in the next day or so. Somehow I ended up with a free. I'm taking a 30-day express elite, whatever you call it, trial for Amazon.com. Where they give you a 2-day delivery and a couple other little perks. And I'm giving that a shot, and thus far they have not managed to keep things in under 2 days. No. I swear. Other than books, I am continually being incredibly disappointed in things I've gotten through Amazon.com. I try to order a bathrobe. I mean, I got the largest size they had, it said 6XL, and I put it on, and the sleeves barely came down past my elbows. I order a pair of shoes, and they're a size too small by length. What does it tell you? I've got extra large shoes, and they were too short for my feet, not just too narrow. It's just disappointing. Yeah. I've not gotten very much done for obvious reasons. I really ought to be lying in bed still. I figure it would take a week of just literally not being able to get out of bed for anything except to pee before my legs were down to halfway normal. That's my estimation. Everybody goes, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor. The problem is, I've been to the doctor, and the doctor can't do dick. You done got swole legs. No shit, Sherlock. And there's no treatment, there's no cure, there's no surgery they can do that will fix this. There's nothing, literally. All they can tell me is, wrap them leather legs up, keep them elevated, and that's great if you live in a recliner. Even somebody as sedentary as me cannot live from a recliner. That's great. If you're already in upper middle upper class circumstances, and you can but when you're down here in the trailer park category, where buying a stick of furniture is a major purchase. Let me put this: I had to save up to get my. I have a recliner here. It doesn't, the footrest thing. The springs aren't strong enough to lift my legs anymore. I have to use a makeshift. If I sit in it, I have to use a makeshift footstool. And believe me, that's I don't really have a problem. And it just getting that, it was like $100 some odd bucks for this chair, and this was an ordeal to get. I wouldn't even like to try and get one of these things home now. I can't even get it up in the front door. So going to the doctor, that's great. If you've got, I've got Medicaid and that's it. And to give you an idea what Medicaid is like, Medicaid will cover my dental, if, okay, it'll handle the minor stuff, like little teeny, little drill here, cleaning the teeth and junk like that, and it'll handle like yanking a tooth if it's like rotting its way into your brain. But anything that falls in between those two extremes, it won't cover. Where most people are. I've got 2 broken teeth that I can't get fixed because the dentists in this area, they say they've gone round the mulberry bush with Medicaid, and Medicaid just jerks them around and won't cover it. So I've got to wait until I manage to scrape 200, a couple hundred spare dollars together to go get those teeth pulled. Of course, I've also got to wait until I scrape a couple $100s together to pay the lot rent, and a couple $100, several $100s to pay the electric bill, a couple $100 over here to pay the internet. The internet for this month, I paid it off. And I also owe the bank. My checking accounts are locked until I pay off an overdraft that I have on one of my accounts, and that's another. I don't owe a lot of money to any one person. It's just bits here and bits here and bits here and bits here and bits here. And it's not like I'm not making money. I get a little bit here and a little bit here, and every now and then a little more come over here and a little bit over here. It's like standing under a leak in your roof with a bucket, waiting for the bucket to fill up. And somebody else keeps coming along and ladling out another another cup of water and throwing it out the window. But you get my point. And just my declining everything makes everything just a little bit harder to do. And I get slower and slower and older and older. And if I was 20, I'd still be kicking butt and taking names. But I'm living the lifestyle that somebody in their, just graduating from college could hack. Too old for this crap. But okay, let's get some stuff done. You people have commissions that you're waiting for. You've got other stuff you're waiting for from me, and the only thing I've managed to get those stupid DVD, the DVDs, sort of. Now, when you get the DVDs, you'll have to open them up in your Explorer, your Computer Explorer, what do they call it now? File Explorer. And click it, you'll open the file, and inside there'll be a web page, an HTML page in the disk that says Super CD. Open that up in your Internet Explorer or your browser or whatever browser you use. Open it up in that browser, and that's your menu for browsing the content of the internet. It's supposed to have, it has a little widget on it that's supposed to make it start up automatically, but for whatever reason, that widget no longer works. You know, you used to be able to pop in the disk, and it would just wing, bing, and pop up. But I don't know what's wrong with the code, and I don't know enough about code to fix it. So, if I can find something between now and when I get the labels done, I'll try and fix it. But I used to have one of my old CDs, Super CD, my second one. It booted up and it had a nuclear explosion background image on the menu. Now the interesting thing is, I made this sound file. I used to fiddle around with this with waves, and I spliced together the Windows startup sound, bling 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 bling. The really old Windows startup sound, and I found a file where it goes bling 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 bling, bling and ends an explosion, and I spliced that together with Krusty the Clown sound file. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Ah, crap! I invented that. I can probably go back through my archives and my old CDs and DVDs and find you the DVD I created that file on. That's me, baby. That's all me. I'm the one that spliced that file together. Ah, crap! Well, anyway, I rigged it up so that when you pop that CD in your computer, it automatically booted up the CD and played that file. And I was getting notes back from people. They say they put that DVD in their, everybody at work laughing at them because they tried, they were at work and they stuck it in the computer. I'm like, this pleases me. But that amuses me. That's my immortality, I guess. I'll splice together a wave file. Wish I knew of a way you could autograph a wave file. Okay, we've got 3 people watching. Yay! How exciting. Let's see here. Let's get this stupid strip done. I've been dilly-dally dawdling over it. I don't know why. I couldn't begin to tell you why. Do you ever have one of those days where you go, "What is wrong with me, God?" There are days I feel like that all the time, all day long. Right now, I just hate everything. I hate everything. I don't want to do anything. I just want to curl up in my room in a ball and just die, or at least fossilize. Just do nothing forever. Uh, that feeling's only gotten worse as time has gotten by. I think I'm just frustrated with the fact that I'm effectively disabled. Because of my legs. I mean, a shopping trip is a cause for pain. Do you understand what I'm saying? Going to the store leaves me in pain and exhausted. Even though when I get to the store, I just roll around in their little electric cart, shopping, because just the extremes I have to go to just to get in and out of the car and drive just a couple of miles to the Walmart. The effort I have to go through just to get the I buy just enough groceries to carry in, and the effort of just getting them in through the door. I have to get them. What I do is that I pull my van up to the front of my house, get the I climb down out of the vehicle, I get the groceries out of the van, put the grocery bags up on the little patio porch in front of the door. Then that takes 5 minutes, just get the bags out. Then I climb up the stairs to the front door, and then I drag the bags into the hallway. Then I rest. Then I drag the bags one by one down the hall to the kitchen. Then one by one I unload the bags and stick all the stuff up in the cabinets and in the refrigerator. And there are times where I've just said, screw it, this doesn't need refrigerator, and I'll leave it in the hallway. See, this is why you have kids. This is the real reason everybody has kids, so the kids can carry crap. Have somebody do the dishes. Take out the garbage. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm whining, but I am whining, and I'm just do you know how infuriating, heartbreaking, and frustrating it is that the only thing I can do for my physical condition is to make myself even more useless and inert? I can't begin to describe how angry and frustrated I am right now. That's literally all I can do. All I can do is lie in bed and do nothing for 24. This is what I haven't managed to stay in bed all day yet, because eventually I'll reach a point where I can't stand it anymore. I get up, or I have to go up and fix something to eat, and then I end up trotting around the house. But this is. It's I've seriously thought that if somebody if the medical community told me, you need to have these legs amputated, I wouldn't resist. I wouldn't complain, because if I had to walk around on my butt for the rest of my life because I had no legs, just above the knees down, I would still get around better than I do now, because I have to drag these huge, swollen, painful, Impossible to walk, almost impossible to walk. Can't get anywhere. Can't go more than 20 feet without getting exhausted. Legs everywhere with me. It's like living with 50-pound anchors tied to your legs. There are days I have trouble fitting my feet under the dashboard of my van. Well, not under the dashboard. The floor area, the foot area, is so narrow where that I have to it's a squeeze to fit both my legs down in there. And every time I go back to the doctor, it's the same story. No matter how bad it gets, there's nothing they can do for me. And all I get out of these people, you need to go to the doctor. So they can do nothing for you. Except rack up some Medicaid charges. That's all they're doing. You need to diet and exercise. Well, you're right. I'll take up jogging. Oh, wait. Maybe I'll just, take up power walking. Yeah. Ooh, bicycling. Yeah, that'd work great. At the same time, I love how all the doctors, if I can't get their heads out of their asses and put them together to think up one system. One doctor, for one problem, they'll tell me you have to sleep with your head and your shoulders elevated. Guy looking at my legs, you need to lie flat. You need to lie completely flat, in order to get your circulation up and down through your legs. And other doctor over here, you need to elevate your feet. You absolutely positively have to elevate if you don't elevate your feet, you're going to develop cancer of the ears and die. And here, let me put you on some oxygen. I've got an oxygenator in here. Oxygen concentrate. I'm supposed to sleep with this thing up my nose, breathing oxygen while I sleep to somehow help with my sleep apnea. And if I followed all their advice simultaneously, I would be dead. Because I would have snapped my spine trying to fold myself into the letter W. No, can they get it's a vein and artery condition. It's just the veins and arteries and lymph glands and all the circulatory piping in my legs has gotten old and saggy, and it's lost its elasticity. They've stretched out, and fluid is just pooling in my legs, and causing all sorts of problems. And they got a pill for it. Can they give me a pill for this? Can they give me an operation? Oh, hell no. But if I want to be, if I want to have a dick harder than Chinese algebra, oh, hey, they've got something for that. And they wonder why people, start going all, homeopathic and herbal and online medicine, smoking weed to try and cure glaucoma. Can't imagine why. Can't imagine why anybody would fall for homeopathy. Oh, no. The surest sign that something is an actual working cure is the FDA won't approve it. There are people out there right now dying of diseases that only have, they have only one treatment in existence for it. But our government will not license it because it's not perfect and because it's risky. But they'd rather have people die of a guaranteed disease, than risk maybe having a bad side effect. This is one reason the FDA is a crock, and we should have never established it as an institution. I can hear everybody, oh, but what about food safety? Yeah, because I remember how everybody died in the 19th century eating ungovernment screened food. Look, there are private institutions that do food and product testing. They do product testing. It's called the Underwriters Laboratory is one example. They're a company that tests household appliances and products for safety, and they give out a safety stamp. If the company goes to them, tests the product, the Underwriters Laboratory tests the product, and gives them back a report and says, either it's safe or it needs improvement or whatever. And there are several companies that do this for these people, and these companies. Savvy consumers know to look for the Underwriters Laboratory seal. It's a seal of approval by a private institution. And why is this better than the government? Because one, the Underwriters Laboratory, the Underwriters Laboratory has an incentive to, one, test the product thoroughly. Otherwise, their name is crap. If they clear a product that's bad, their name is crap. At the same time, if they waste time over testing a product, their name becomes crap too. So they have an incentive to both be thorough and timely. The United States government has neither of those concerns. So long as the FDA is the only legal authority for testing food and drug products, they don't have to do a good job. They don't have, and what's worse, that makes them vulnerable to political manipulation. Suppose some company comes up with a cure for the common cold, and they send it into the FDA. We've tested this, and here's all these products, blah 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 blah, and the FDA starts running it through the process, and politician, you got politician over here who's been paid off by the cough syrup consortium to prevent this cure from getting on the market. And so the politician leans on the FDA and says, screen this a little more thoroughly. And the FDA goes, but we've looked at it and it looks fairly, look again. And so that product goes back into their cycle again and again and again and again until political interest changes. And so people who need this cure never get it. Now this is what happened with stevia. Stevia is sweet leaf. Sweet leaf is a natural sweetener. It's a non-sugar sweetener used extensively in Asia. It's been used for over 600 years. It's an all-natural product. It's been used for 6 centuries in the Far East. What's more is that it tastes better than anything on the market, any artificial sweetener. And unlike the synthetic sweeteners like aspartame and NutraSweet and sucralose and all these others they've come out with, sweet leaf, also known as Truvia or stevia, seems to actually improve insulin balance. As in, using it seems to mend insulin resistance. There's evidence that it does that. We're looking at something that a sweetener that might actually cure diabetes. And the Coca-Cola company shit its collective pants. They started lobbying the government to block Sweet Leaf being sold in the United States. And the politicians, knowing which side of the bread that had the butter, went out and blocked it, claiming that, all sorts of spurious claims. Oh, we don't know if it's safe or not. And they damn well knew it was safe. And only recently did that moratorium end. And so now Sweet Leaf can be sold in the United States. Except, in the meanwhile, certain companies, we shan't say, but they rhyme with Coca-Cola, developed a synthetic version of the active ingredient in Sweet Leaf and are marketing it now under the name stevia. Because you see, you can't patent an herbal you cannot patent an herbal remedy. You cannot patent a natural sweetener. But hey, something that came out of a test tube, no problem. That is the dirtiest, sleaziest, most son of a bitch stunts I have seen out of a corporation. I could stand there and say, "Oh, we ought to boycott Coca-Cola," and I'm like, yeah, everybody that listens to me could, and everybody on the planet who heard that could blockade it, and Coca-Cola wouldn't see a 1% drop in its sales. Besides which, for a fact that I'm going to be out there, how those boycotts go. 2 days later, you've forgotten it, and you're getting a Coca-Cola out of the vending machine. Hey, it's only 50 cents today, But just dirty pool. Just sleazy. Sleazy. I'm in big defense of the open market and free systems, and I get really sick of people who try and accuse corporations of ruining the world. How dare they provide affordable, cheap products that we want? But dang, I ain't a fool either. I know they get up to dirty shenanigans. It's called cronyism. But our economically illiterate society can't tell the difference between capitalism and cronyism. Can't tell the difference between charity and government confiscation. Just there's probably a cure in the pipeline. Or a treatment or a medication or something out there for edema, swelling. That's what they call what my legs are doing. It's called in my case, lymphatic edema. It's edema, swelling of the legs. And there is probably a cure going through the system right now that won't see the light of day until I'm in my 90s. Because, hey, you can't fire them for doing a bad job at the FDA. They work for the government. What's sad is that all these things we know that are wrong with our society, we have known them for years. We have known them for centuries. We have known them for decades, we have known them for years, we've known them for centuries, and knowing it, and repeating it, and saying it, and protesting it, not one damn thing has changed. Nothing. nothing changes. I get so sick of it. I get so sick. I hate these headlines you see on. Facebook. Shocking discovery about the Clintons, or about Obama, or about this politician or that politician. This will end everything for them, and it never does. I said this before. Obama could be caught live on camera raping the family dog on the front lawn of the White House. He wouldn't even get a citation for indecent. He wouldn't even get a ticket for indecent exposure. I'm like, call me back when one of them is actually hauled off in handcuffs. Call me back when one of them actually goes to jail. Don't give me this BS about how this changes everything. We've made a shocking discovery. Politicians are crooked. Yeah, well, congratulations on catching up with the rest of the planet. Justice Scalia, conservative on the Supreme Court, found dead in his home. He had a clean bill of health, was found dead in his home with a pillow, in bed with a pillow over his face. This is the second, this is like the fourth or fifth time somebody who is causing grief for Obama or Hillary has been found very, very dead in very, very interesting circumstances. And they're going to get away with it. They'll get away with it again. They will never, never, ever pay the price. Society has to have gone so far to hell. You have to be down in the shithole that Eastern Europe was in at the fall of the Soviet Empire before politicians start eating lead like they need to. Look up Ceausescu. C-E-A-U-C, and I don't know how, E-S-C-U, I think. Ceausescu. He was one of the communist tyrants in one of the countries in the Soviet bloc. When the wall went, oh man, when most of you probably are not even old enough to remember it. When the balloon went up, when the Berlin Wall fell, and the Soviet Union came apart at the seams, chickens started coming home to roost all over the place. Ceausescu, the last anybody saw of him was live footage of his dead ass lying in the street with blood spattered everywhere. Once or twice in your lifetime will you see a truly evil person finally reap what they sow. Saddam Hussein, he strung up by the people he tormented, crying like a little bitch the entire time. Ceausescu, killed with extreme prejudice, with his corpse left lying in the street. Osama bin Laden. We assume he's dead. That's the report we got, but they won't let us see the photos. Had his dead ass dumped in the ocean. But we are run by people who are just as vile and evil. That's the thing of it. We've got people running this country who, if they thought they could get away with it, would be running the country just the same as Saddam or Ceausescu did. The common terminology for Congress is a parliament of whores. They are felons. Serving in Congress, If any of us behaved like our congressman, if any of us behaved like the average congressman, we would be in jail instantly. Many of us would be executed. I mean, capital. Ted Kennedy killed a woman. Got drunk, drove her off a bridge, left her to drown. Trapped in his car. He should have never seen the light of day again. He should have been in prison. Instead, he was in Congress, living it up as one of our lords and masters. And he stayed there till the day he died. We've got proof, ever-increasing proof, that there probably hasn't been a lawfully elected Democrat in this country in decades. Caught them cheating the voting system in every state of the union. Paying hobos with boxes of cigarettes. Their campaign workers filling out fake voting registration for non-existent people. People, when the Democrats working the voting places, fudging ballots, trying to trick people into voting Democrat when they want to vote Republican. Literally, seriously. Oh, be sure and mark, just mark all the ones on the left. There you go. Crap like that. No lie. This is our world. It sucks. I don't know if it would be any better or any worse, to be honest. Ignorance must be bliss. There's so many people determined to maintain theirs. But I look at some people, I'm like, oh my Lord. They're just completely oblivious, ignorant of their government. But from what I've seen, being aware doesn't do you any good either. Doesn't do you a lick of good. Because you go out of your way to get aware and learn the issues and figure out the best politician for the job, and then you go and vote, and then they come out and they do whatever the hell they want anyway. And the worst thing about being politically aware is that you become painfully, being educated in things like politics and economics and civics, and exactly how the policies of the United States government are affecting you personally. Even the ones that you don't think, even the ones that the average, oh, it won't affect me. I'm not a rich person. I'm not a white person. I'm not a man. I'm not living in New York City. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. But when you've been better educated in that, you don't have that blissful escape from reality. You don't have that reprieve. You've heard the saying in the land of the in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. No, in the land of the blind lead the blind. The one-eyed man is the soothsayer standing outside of the edge of town, screaming warnings that nobody listens to. That's the reality. That was one of the themes of the Witch Hunter, that I was trying to get at with the Witch Hunter. The story of the Witch Hunter is a Ashcan comic story. It's included in the DVD. The idea is that I went with the idea: what if not all of the witch hunters back in a couple hundred years ago what if not all of them were fakes? It was a gruesome time because the witch panics of Europe and the colonies, people, charlatans were making themselves rich at the expense of the innocent by going around with, accusing people of witchcraft and performing bogus tests to prove that they were witches. I was like, well, and basically I came up with the idea that some people could see the evils that lay in men's hearts. There were, that the idea is that certain people were born with a ability. It was supposed to be urban fantasy. The idea is that people of a certain lineage, they could look at somebody, they could see, as plain as day. They could look at him and go, "This guy is a drunkard. This guy over here has committed a murder. That one over there is addicted to cocaine. This one over here is a pathological liar. This one over here is a thief." They could see the evils that these men indulged in, and if they looked at an utter sociopath, they saw somebody who didn't even look human anymore. That was their ability, and it was set in modern times. Centuries after the Malleum Maleficarum, and after the witch hunts by the Puritans and all that. And the protagonist was a young man who came into this ability when he was just in his teens, and thought he had gone insane until he discovered by sheer chance how his abilities worked, and he realized that he could see the shadow knows. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? That sort of thing. And the slogan I came up with for the front cover was, "In the land of the blind, pity the one who sees." Because I wanted to explain what if you had no excuse. We operate from a day-to-day basis. Our civilization operates. We function as individuals because, for the most part, we are unknowing of the evils that go on behind closed doors. But what if you couldn't pass a closed door without knowing what was going on behind it? What if you could walk down the street, you could look at somebody, and you could literally see with your mind the blood on their hands, and nobody else could? And you had no proof except your own senses. What kind of burden would that be? What kind of obligation would that be lying on that person? Would you have the strength to break with the conventions of our civilization, which is basically the majority of civilization depends on a certain amount of feigned ignorance? In part because we have to, assume innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Because otherwise we would not be able to function as a civilization, because if we went around assuming everybody was guilty, automatically, we would get it wrong often as not. Also, so many times we have to pretend we don't know what's going on. Because, in part because we feel powerless. In part because we feel powerless. We think that if we tried to do anything, it would make no difference. And oftentimes it doesn't. How many people have been crying out in the wilderness, this person is a liar, this person is a thief, this person has broken the law, and nobody cares. I mean, Facebook is my Facebook page is an ongoing litany of that. We've got people running our country right now who break the law with impunity that would have left a previous generation shaking in their boots to even think of doing. And if we stood on the steps of the White House and pointed Obama right, the only result would be is that we would be the ones, we would be hauled off and stuck in a jail cell someplace by the Secret Service. But what if we lived in a, what if, we pretend, we know we have no material proof. So we pretend. We hold our nose and shake hands with the devil constantly. We have to. Because we have no power. Well, we think we don't. And, but what if that feigned ignorance could not be sustained? How many of us would have the guts to break the conventions of our society and intervene? the opening pages of that story, the witch hunter, he is a couple of cops investigating a homicide. They find two guys who have been basically stabbed to death with a silver knife. Actually, more, less of a knife and more of a machete. And the big reveal is when they're there with the cameras and everything, and doing the chalk outline thing, and then the investigating officers go in the back room where they find out that these two quote unquote poor innocent victims had kidnapped a little girl and had her tied up in the back room. The witch hunter had seen one of the pedophiles walking down the street with his sin boiling around him like a cloud, and had tracked him back to his lair and killed him and his partner to save that little girl. And it nearly destroys him, because up to this point, he's never, he's killed once before, but in defense of his own life, he's never, stalked somebody down. But this time he up until now he's been phoning in anonymous tips, but this time there was no time. And the story revolves around him. The opening story is just him telling his story. To the police officer that he's been phoning these anonymous tips into. It was poorly written. It was terrible. It was only rough sketches, so art was pretty terrible. I'm very bad at drawing human figures, to be truthful. I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that as far as great artists go, I make a pretty good cartoonist. I'm a very mediocre artist, all said and done. When it comes to more realistic things, like even drawing a human face is just a little bit below my level of capacity. I don't have the patience really to you see a comic? Yeah, you ever look at some of the comic books on the shelf these days? The artwork, the art level. I mean, I know they have an entire staff, just one person to do the penciling, one person to do the inking, another to do the coloring, another to do the lettering, and my brain is going, I couldn't even do the penciling. I do not have the patience for the detail work, the penciling of just one page, and these guys are cranking. Some of these artists are working on multiple comics. They're cranking out 24 pages a month for one comic. I have to force myself to sit down just to draw one. I'm ashamed to say that. There was a time when I was much younger when I could just sit down and draw comics. I had all sorts of terrible jokes, but I had ideas all the time, and I couldn't hesitate to write them down and put them down and make them into comics. But now it feels like all that gift is gone. It feels like almost, and some days I just want to cry for what I've lost, for what I could have been, if only, you know. I'm only 44. I'm only 44. I have to stop and think how old I am actually. Am I 44? Am I 45? It's 2016. I was born in 1971. I'm 40. I'm gonna be 45 in March. And I feel I have I have used up and wasted my allotted lifespan. My not necessarily. I'm probably live for decades more, but I've used up my vitality. What is furosemide? Let me see here. Laser furosemide. I have no idea what furosemide is. Oh, it's diuretic. Don't know. Uh, I'm going to ask about for. I'll ask if. I recall them putting me on diuretic for a while, and it didn't really seem to make any difference. But that was quite some time ago. I might ask him again, see about it. But I really don't want the kind of problems, the side effects. I've heard that going on these diuretics can have all sorts of nasty side effects and problems. And great, oh great, my legs have shrunk and now my kidneys have failed. Just kind of a poor trade-off, if you ask me. Now they're claiming, I've read somewhere, now they're claiming that green tea extract can, like, destroy your liver. I'm like, crap, everything's killing you out there. This is what it means to get older. Nothing works and everything's going to kill you. Just checking my email real quick. Pardon. Papa John's 50% off. I'm not really sure it'd even be worth it. Really, I've reached a point where I go pizza, meh. I gotta be like really desperately hungry for pizza. And even then, I'm not so thrilled. That sounds about right. Don't seem to have any control anymore. one of the popular trends right now in fan fictions in My Little Pony is human in a question. They're called displaced. Displaced stories. Basically, it consists the idea is that the protagonist goes to a convention, a comic book convention. They see a vendor, a strange vendor, selling props for costumes. They buy the prop. The prop turns out to be enchanted. The prop transports them to Equestria and turns them into whoever or whatever they were dressed as, giving them all their powers and skills and everything else. But they retain their own memory. And the human in Equestria in question almost instantly falls afoul of Celestia and Luna. Sometimes just Celestia. But occasionally both of them flip their lids and get mad at him. And the protagonist gets basically trapped in stone for 1,000 years, or some variant thereof. And the story then picks up 1,000 years later with the return of Nightmare Moon and the escape of Discord and this guy, this protagonist who escapes from his own prison. There's been everything from characters from Naruto to a guy who woke up as a Dalek. So, and the thing of it is, with almost every case, the human in question, with the exception of the ones who are just trolling, they decide to jerk Celestia's chain. Nearly all of them show up. There's a big, huge misunderstanding. Celestia has a knee-jerk reaction and traps him in stone. And it occurs to me this is the exact opposite of Celestia's real problem. If anything, Celestia in the show is a very, very poor disciplinarian. In that she does not, just slap people in irons or banish them to the moon or turn them into a statue at the drop of a hat. In fact, more often than not, she fails to punish characters who, greatly deserve it. Discord is what you would call a 3-strike loser. He's been imprisoned twice, and each time he got loose, he's done nothing. He causes catastrophe. He's betrayed. He conquered Equestria twice and betrayed it a third time, and Celestia is still letting him run loose without so much as a bell on a collar. And Nightmare Moon, let's be honest, if it had been anybody but her sister, and then there was Trixie, not even so much as a slap on the wrist. Once the villain is out of sight, it's out of sight, out of mind for her. And if they are in sight, her first inclination is to give them yet another chance, whether they deserve it or not. Much to the lamentation of her subjects. Celestia's problem isn't draconian excess. Her problem is excessive leniency. Excuse me. I think most of it's Celestia the Tyrant thing. Celestia the knee-jerk tyrant thing springs from the one line in Discord's return episode where he says, I don't trap ponies in stone. Like. And the last thing I need to do is order twice as much food. Of course, by the time they add in the taxes and the delivery fee and everything else, you're back up to $10-15. Okay, I'm not gonna be on much longer. My feet are really hurting. Okay, legs are really hurting. I really need to I need to lie down and stay lying in bed for at least a couple of days, but I haven't managed it yet. I really need to see where the... Need to sketch out the new page of... next page of... it's got to be pretty clear that the Draconian Empire and the Dracon Empire and the Rakonan Empire do not get along. It's not so much that they have a Cold War. It's more like they don't exactly have a Cold War going. But nobody wants to pass each other the stuffing at Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I'm saying? uh, the Dracon Empire is very centralized and federalized and regulated out the wing wong. And they regard the Rakonans as a bunch of lawless anarchists, and it is a constant source of aggravation to the Dracons that the Rakonan Empire hasn't actually collapsed into anarchy as they keep telling each other it's supposed to happen. The Rakonans regard the Dracon Emperor as a bunch of control freaks who are lagging tragically behind in every cultural and scientific regard because of their bureaucratic and progress smothering culture. The reason, and one of the annoyances for the Rakonans is dealing with the constant influx of Dracon refugees, most of whom are sensible enough, but a considerable number of them are like, well, picture living in Texas and dealing with Californians. The Californians come out there to get away from their ruined state, and they want to bring along all the government regulatory policies that caused the ruin in the first place. On the other hand, there's a certain amount of brain drain going on here. Dracon scientists get tired of the restrictive nature of the Dracon Empire's government, and so they tend to go where they are allowed to practice as they please, namely the Rakonan Empire. One of the points that's going to be brought up, I'm also struggling to remember the secondary objective of the probability bomb is to address the theories and dogmas of evolution. and present some of the counter arguments that intelligent design and creation scientists have been bringing out, and present them in a indirect but straightforward fashion. Uh, Particularly, uh, the age the one I'm working into now is the age of the universe. One of the things that evolutionists will concede to is that for blind chance to have created, life, the universe, stars, planets, everything else, requires tremendous amounts of time. And their model for the lifespan of the universe, they love to point out, the stars are billions and billions of miles away. They're light years away, and yet the light has already reached us. That means those stars are billions and billions and billions and billions of years old. Of course, they forget that in any cosmological model, whether we're talking the creation model or the evolutionary Big Bang, the early ages of the universe consists of all of time and space being stretched and distorted like taffy. Most of the measurements we use for the length of the time, they don't make any real objective sense, because you go back, you following the Big Bang model, you go back to the early stages of the universe. Time and space have basically, it's not just matter, but time and space itself that have just exploded. One of the facts we know from Einstein's theory of relativity and from observation, which has subsequently proven his theories, is that time flows at different rates. It's not a constant. Time is not a cosmic constant. There are places in this universe where time is flowing faster than it is here. There are other places where time is flowing slower than it is here. And those places are reachable, even now, at our level of technology. Even you take a space shuttle in orbit, the clock on board the space shuttle will run at a different speed than the one sitting down in Cape Canaveral. It's a microscopic difference. I mean, like a matter of nanoseconds. But it is literally enough that the satellites orbiting Earth have to have atomic clocks on board and a computer that corrects that clock every orbit. Because, for instance, if it didn't, the difference between the clock on board the satellites in the GPS system and the ones on Earth, your GPS would be off by several kilometers by the end of the first day. And that's just from the temporal dilation of a satellite in orbit rather than stationary on the Earth. Now, I want you to picture the universe has just exploded. Imagine what that does to the flow, the flow rate of time. You probably, the passages in the Old Testament describe God casting the stars out, like the imagery is of taking a blanket and flinging it out to spread it out in the air, like you know, whoof. While 7 days were passing on Earth, all sorts of eons and epochs could have been passing everywhere else in the universe. But we think like we live on a flat planet in cosmic terms. We think that every clock in the universe is running at the exact same speed, and we tend to picture the universe as a big stationary black canvas on which the stars move. It's not like that. Now, there are also certain fundamental problems with the Big Bang Theory. For instance, the background radiation. You've heard of it. The background radiation. It's in a certain frequency of microwaves that is literally emanating from every point in the sky. It's supposed to be the background hum of the universe, basically. The problem is that it is too even. Let's put it this way. The universe is supposed to be billions of years old, but trillions of light years wide. The universe has not been in existence long enough for that radiation to have spread out over the entire sky like that. It should be blotchy. It should be spotty. There should be areas that are still dark, but it's not. And you point this out to these scientists, and they go, basically. They found out that there was not enough mass in the universe. They ran the calculations for the Big Bang. And they realized that wasn't enough mass in the known universe. Even calculating the size of the universe, the hypothetical size of the universe, they did not have enough mass. To run the equations backward and get the result they expected. So they started talking about dark or strange matter. They talked about dark matter. You see, it's this, it's this invisible, special, magic matter, which is totally invisible to every sense except gravity for some reason. And the universe is supposed to be full of it. And that's where all the excess mass is supposed to be. It's invisible. You can't see it, and you can't detect it, and it doesn't emit any radiation, but it's out there somewhere. Right alongside the invisible pink unicorn and the flying spaghetti monster. Mm-hmm. You love how they accuse Christians of believing in invisible magic teapots floating in orbit around Mars, and all these metaphors they come up with for us believing in things that don't, invisible pink dragons, that kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, the most fundamental dogmas of their evolutionary model depend entirely on phlebotinum. Evolutionists have been performing the Corbomite maneuver since the days of Darwin. And the more they make up, the more they have to make up. They came up with strange matter, and then they realized that there wasn't enough outward energy to push the universe apart. This is the Cliff Notes explanation. So they came up with dark energy. Excuse me while I go pull this leprechaun out of my ass. shame. No shame at all. This is what they call science. You know, in the magical land of make-believe. And then they would say, "Oh, we've found dark matter. We've pointed our telescopes at an area of space, and we've seen things moving around." As I recall, there are other things that cause, light to light to bend and planets to move and operate. It's called gravity and planets, black holes. Things that they've actually seen that exist. No, it's dark matter. It's dark matter. Trust me. Trust me. You trust me. I'm a scientist. As a scientist, I can make up all sorts of just so stories. This is the end of science. This is the end of the era of science, because you no longer have to do experimentation or provide any material evidence. You just have to spin a really good just so story to explain it away. That's not science. The day they called Darwin's, origin of species scientific was the end of science. Because up until that point, you wanted to prove something. There was a very simple process. You came up, you observed a phenomenon. You came up with a hypothesis. You conducted an experiment or a series of experiments to recreate the phenomenon. And the whole thing was supposed to be falsifiable. You were supposed to be able to get a true response or a false response. You were supposed to have an outcome that was either yes, this is, or no, but and then went and said, you presented your evidence, you presented the experiment you conducted, you presented the conclusion, and if that experiment was repeatable by others, it went from being a hypothesis to a theory, and from a theory, and eventually from a theory to a law. Oh, Darwin, he wasn't going to waste time with that shit. They just sort of skipped over the whole middle part, where they tested his theory. And so his whole contribution to the scientific world was go on an island vacation, write a make-believe book. Question marks, then profit, and then skip all that crap in the middle and go straight to science. And if any of you out there say consensus, shut up. The scientific community has conclusively proved it. How? When? Why? No, what they do is they go out, they dig up fossils, and they say, and then they inform you that they've proved something. They haven't proved anything. They've gone out and dug up the fossils and interpreted them according to this evolutionary theory. And when the theory didn't, when the evidence didn't match the theory, they've either altered or hidden the evidence. or they've suddenly they've suddenly rewritten the theory and pretended that it was entirely different right from the beginning. You know what the problem is with scientific consensus? Where the scientific community has reached a conclusion and it's established and everybody knows that it's true. 100 years ago, there was, less than 100 years ago, in my father's childhood, there was a 100% scientific consensus that there were canals on the surface of Mars. Every astronomer in the world could point their telescopes up and look at that planet. And every last one of them came away, oh, there are definitely canals on that surface. There aren't. There never were. They went up there, they set up their telescopes expecting to see them. And what a surprise. They saw them even though they weren't there. You can look at the photographs. No sign of them. Then we flew a couple of ships up there that orbited around it. Surprise, no canals. It was all the fevered imagination of one man who convinced the astronomical world that it was absolutely true. And everybody was determined to believe it. You will see what you expect to see. It's one of the perils of doing scientific research. Look, what color is an alligator? What color is an alligator? Seriously, think about it. What color is an alligator? Every picture you've ever seen drawn of one, the alligator's green, right? You ask 99.9% of the people in the world, you ask them on the street. In America, in Canada, in the most educated, the most well-informed and well-educated societies on Earth, ask them what color an alligator is. Then you show them a photograph of an alligator. Then they will say it's green. And say it's green. And then you hold up a color wheel next to that that alligator. That alligator is charcoal gray. This is why children, when they draw, start drawing pictures, you tell them, draw a picture of that tree over there. They'll get out a brown crayon. That tree could be, gray or black, even. It won't even come close to being brown. But they know that it's brown. And they'll see it as brown. And before they'll ignore what their brain will ignore what their eyes say. And that tree will be drawn with a brown crayon. Ow, ow, ow. There's a comic strip I've got a comic strip in Camp Calamine. There is a photograph. I did this. It's a color strip in Camp Calamine. It's a photograph of a alligator. And it shows, Counselor Charles is holding up a gray color wheel strip next to it. See, it's gray. It's gray. This is why we do experimentation. This is why we use measuring tools. rather than eyeballing things. This is why we use rulers and scales. And this is why pilots fly by instrument rather than by their sight. And one of the things they have to hammer into their heads, because, for instance, when a pilot takes off, especially off like an aircraft carrier, their inner ear will utterly fool them. They will fly off because of the thrust is so high. Their inner ear will be swearing up and down to them, "Dude, we're flying straight up." It's not merely a matter of optical illusion. We will see what we expect to see. There are tests that you can take online on YouTube. You know, they say, watch this video and tell us how many times they pass the ball back and forth. You know, there'll be 4 or 5 people staying there. They have a basketball and they're passing it back and forth, and you're standing there watching it. Then the video ends and the thing pops up. Okay, write down your number. Now write down how many, you know, and then it'll ask, oh, by the way, did you see the gorilla walk past? And then it'll play the video again. You'll tell you back, rewind it, and you'll rewind it because you just have to check and make sure they're not jerking you. Anyway, and there's a guy in a monkey suit walking right past them, right behind them, right in front of the camera. You can see him clear as day. He's not way off in the distance or nothing. He's right there. But you will miss him. You will not even see him because you were. It takes an unholy amount of effort to get to shift somebody out of the box, so to speak, to get them to take a step back away from themselves and realize what they're, to get them to realize that what they're saying or what they are arguing is biased, that they are basing their preconceptions, they're basing their conclusions on their preconceptions, not on observed facts. This meme has been going on. It's rape. If you take advantage of if you have sex with a drunk woman, it's rape, right? Well, let's be honest. Getting a girl drunk and having sex with her, that's pretty sleazy. This is our first impulse to say, "Oh, that's sleazy." But then again, let's think about this. If that girl got drunk and got behind the wheel of a car, it would be her that was held responsible for the outcome. But because she got drunk, it's interesting. If she got drunk and got in the front seat, in the driver's seat of the car, she's responsible. But if she gets drunk and gets in the back seat of the car, no, it's the guy that's responsible. Isn't that interesting? And generally speaking, they're both drunk. They've both been knocking beers back. So explain to me why her sleeping with him isn't her raping him. He's pretty much, pickled like she is. Why is she not responsible for taking advantage of him? No. But you can't get, try and get a feminist to contemplate that reality. The little hamster in the wheel that she uses up, in between her ears, will just go out of its little mind, fall right off the wheel, and start running in circles. We have trained entire generations to shut out theories that defy their dogma. And they do it with frightening effectiveness. They are not taught to listen, they are taught what they are expected to hear. Most astounding example I ever saw is there was a brief sitcom about a decade ago. Henry Winkler. He was, the media really was pissed at Rush Limbaugh. This was back when Rush Limbaugh still had his TV show. Rush was running a TV show that ran late at night. And it was quite popular, so they kept moving it around and trying to hide it. But anyway, they did a parody where, Henry Winkler, typical Hollywood limousine liberal, played a Rush Limbaugh knockoff. And, basically they were trying to slam all the conservative stances that Rush Limbaugh had. And they had one episode where Henry Winkler was on there talking about handing out condoms in school. He says, and verbatim, Henry Winkler's character says, what is this way, you're handing this stuff out, you're encouraging them to have sex. And he goes home, and of course, for the purposes of the sitcom, he's married to this fire-breathing feminist liberal. And she comes home, you went on TV and told them that they shouldn't teach children how to be safe. Not even close to what he had said. But that was what glorious leader had told her she should hear. This is what her college professors and her feminist studies teachers had taught her to hear anytime a conservative spoke out against the policy of giving out sex paraphernalia to children. They cannot even hear the words when they come out of their own mouths. What the hell? You try and point out to I've talked to people who claim to be students of science, physics, chemistry, biochemistry, biology. I'm a college major in this field of scientific study, blah 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 blah. And you point out that the theory of evolution, biological evolution, violates the laws of thermodynamics. It basically requires entropy to run backwards. And for less complex, organized, and information-rich in information devoid substances to combine together into complex life forms encoded with data for their own repair, design, and reproduction. Spontaneous, it's a violation of one of the most fundamental tenets of physics. The laws of, the first three laws of thermodynamics, laws of entropy. And they will say, well, that's for a closed system. What the hell do they mean by that? It's a closed system. You expand it out to the side, and so basically what their argument is that, if the Earth was a closed system, but it's an open system, it's exposed to the entire universe, and it's only a net gain in a small area, but over the grand scope of the universe, it's still, that is basically like saying, because they're basically saying that because because they include the whole universe into the estimation, it doesn't count. Ignoring the fact that their whole model of the cosmos requires that the universe goes from a tiny blob of matter exploding and then reassembling itself into stars, planets, and galaxies. Upon which various random molecules combine by spontaneous chance and form themselves into life. In a sane universe, in a sane world, that would be a theory to make a cat laugh. No one would take such flummery seriously. But in a lost world where people want to believe in anything but God, it's considered unarguable scientific fact. It's considered, it's an unarguable scientific dogma. When you can no longer question the current doctrines or dogma of science, then the age of science is over. When you can make up theories that are by definition untestable, you cannot even make up a hypothetical. They say for all the frenzy people are making over, string theory among physicists. There are other physicists who pointed out these, the string theory is so exotic. You literally cannot even hypothesize. You cannot even devise an imaginary test that would be by which the theory of string theory that string theory could be falsified. The process of scientific experimentation is not a process of proving things true. It's a process of testing things until they break. The purpose of conducting an experiment is to try your damnedest to prove your theory false. And if you you fail to prove your theory false, then it is accepted as proven. But string theory is so bizarre that they cannot even imagine an experiment that could be conducted to test whether it was true or false. But it is accepted as scientific doctrine. It stopped being a process of testing theories, setting aside the false, and embracing the true. It has become a process to see. It's a popularity contest to see who has the most vivid imagination and the biggest number of insiders and higher ups who will help you out in front of the review board. Zero science involved. Well, we can go with feminism as an example. Most of the claims of feminism, most of the historical interpretations of feminism, are blatantly false, and they're ridiculous on the face if you think about them for 5 seconds. One of the fundamental errors they make is that they compare the fate. They compare the fate of the average lower class peasant woman to the general welfare of the highest ranking males in past societies. They compare the lifestyle of a pig herder's wife to the lifestyle of the king, and say, see, the patriarchy is oppressive of women, forgetting entirely that the pig herder himself is living a pretty shitty existence too. Women were chattel and men were farm animals. Women were chattel. Men were workhorses. They were mules. They were plow pulling animals, and they were expected to work themselves from dawn to dusk until they died. To provide for their families after they had put all the goodies of life on the plank of the table in front of the king. Women in Western civilization, they were done wrong in many ways, but most everybody was done wrong in many ways. And women, for all that they were, for all the disadvantages they suffered, they were also revered. Chivalry was about treating women as if they were something precious, something elevated, something to be set up on a pedestal. Some of these modern feminists are finding out the hard way that they can have, absolute equality, or they can have chivalry. They can't have both. Got these women, they talk about equality, 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 and then they go around punching and kicking and biting men, and then they get shocked when Sir Doormat suddenly turns around and pops someone in the teeth. I saw a video once, a collection of these women getting a taste of real equality. You know, these women showed multiple series of these women attacking men physically. I mean, it's like, what the hell? You just back off. And they just jump and punching and kicking and biting and going for the ground, you know, the whole 9 yards, right? Until the guy finally turns around. Whoosh! I giggled my frickin' behind off. Welcome to equality. They don't want equality. They want to have their cake and eat it too. Word of advice to everybody out there. Don't bother trying to please the politically correct. Don't bother trying to please feminists or social activists or any of these other groups. Don't bother. Don't bother trying to please a feminist. Their entire existence revolves around never being pleased. It's where they get their identity. It's where they get whatever it is they use that replaced their personality. No man on earth could satisfy a feminist. Not even if he had, not even if he ejaculated chocolate and money, okay? Because they didn't become feminists because they wanted things to get better. They became feminists because they figured out that crying like a little bitch gets you whatever you ask for. They're like a baby figure. You ever seen the movie Look Who's Talking? It has the running theme is that the baby in the picture has a voiceover. It's funny. I'll admit that. There's one scene where he's lying in a crib. Hello, hey, I've got something wet and uncomfortable in my shirt. Could somebody please come in here and do something? And he's looking up. Could you guys go get somebody? And the baby starts crying. He goes, oh, great, nobody cares. And he starts howling, and the mother comes staggering in, sticks a bottle in his mouth, and he's sitting there. Oh, let me think this over. I start crying, and she comes in here and gives me a bottle. And the next scene is him just howling his head every 5 minutes to get a bottle. That's all feminine is. Throwing a tantrum till you get what you want. Whether you deserve it or not. Feminists don't do anything. They don't make anything. They produce anything. All they do is go around looking for whatever men have created, whatever men have, demanding that it be given to them, and that it be remade to cater to their interests. Why doesn't this place have facilities for females? This place wasn't built for you. None of this was made for you. You want a club? Why don't you go out and make your own quote-unquote gentleman's club? No, screaming and crying here is much easier. aren't there more women up in the higher ranks? Why aren't there more women in the STEM field? Why aren't they? Because you didn't come here and try for it. You know, why are all these comic books so catered to men and their disgusting man interests? Because the girls didn't want to read the damn comics in the first place. No, it would never occur to these beasts to go out and write their own damn comics, or to make their own video games. No, it never occur to them. They expect the men to go in and mutilate what the men have made to cater to their interests, to the interests of the women. Do you think it never occurs to comic writing, hey, we got, there's like 50% of the population we would like to sell comic books and other things to. And they've tried, and nothing they do pleases. Then the feminists come along and try and force them to do things that would please nobody. Not even the feminists. You have the men rescue the women, they complain that the female characters are weak. You have the women, you have the female characters like Laura Croft, you have strong female characters, they complain that they're masculinizing them. And you have characters like Laura Croft come out and all they can do is complain about how big her tits are. Oh, newsflash. Laura Croft's tits are not particularly large. She just has them. Every aspect of the civil rights movement has produced just about every aspect of the civil rights movement of the 60s, feminism and the whole 9 yards, has produced the same result: the violation of the freedom of association. The idea used to be that you started a business, you catered to who you wanted to. If you weren't, nobody had the right to demand. If you made shoes, nobody had the right to demand that you made shoes for women as well as for men. But now if you don't, they come in and march and in protest in front of your store until you go bankrupt trying to provide them a product that they want, which they won't buy anyway. You start a burger place and immediately you've got vegetarians out there. Why haven't you got anything for us? Because I wasn't interested in serving you. Now that answer isn't accepted anymore. We got entire generations of people in this country who have never heard no. And you know, the term now is cry bullies. It's a lazy term. They ought to just call them, cry. Yeah, just call them crybabies. Call them brats. Spoiled brats. They figured out that if they throw a big noisy enough tantrum, big sweet sugar daddy government will come along and make those mean people do what they want. They better hope to God a guy like I never get in charge of the world, because I think I would have to dedicate several weeks out of every year just going around punching people in the face. I would, man. I'd pull up in uh, you know Emperor of America limousine, get out of our car, walk up to the first social justice word. Shut up! You're not getting any. It is a very good thing for a huge percentage of humanity that I have no political power whatsoever. Because I would go Emperor Palpatine in a matter of hours. Just dealing with him. I swear, it's amazing you coming out the other side of being an honest politician. You go into Washington D.C. as a principled, honorable politician. It's amazing you don't come out the other side, your face like a raisin, shooting lightning bolts out of your fingers. And now, young Kennedy, you will die! Do you know how many people would give their ITs just to smack Bernie Sanders like a bitch? We used to have, back when this country started out, we had politicians with some serious brass knobs. I am not kidding you. I mean, we had, the early years, they had Congress, it broke out in fist fights. I kid you not. Fist fights right there in Congress, man. Nowadays, they're all too prissy to even, even to speak a word out of turn. Turned into a bunch of gay French soccer players. Why don't you Americans play real football? Because we're still heterosexual. Have you seen that? I mean, it is the saddest, pussiest. I've lost count of how many clips I've seen. Some soccer player out there in these little gay biker shorts pretending to be hurt. Not even within 10 feet of the player. The guy walking along, he falls down on the ground. Oh, I'm crippled. I'm blind. I've been wounded. I'm dying. I'm 20 feet away from him, aren't I? Oh, trying to get those fake kickouts, man. What the? Well, they do pull out a machine, suck all the testosterone out of them before they join the team. You know what? Oh, you Americans, you're not so tough. You have to wear all the pads and the helmet. And, yeah, our American football, you wear pads and helmet and all that other stuff because you freaking need it. You go out there on the field, you play soccer, suck in soccer, and you get a bloody nose, or maybe you'll get a blow to the nuts when they kick that ball a little too hard in the wrong direction. Whoop. You go out there on a football field, man, they will be pulling people in on stretchers with their legs pointing out in the wrong direction, heads on backwards. Walk it off, walk it off. People come off a football field looking like they've been to war. They need those helmets. Everybody talk about how rugby is supposed to be a bigger, badder version of soccer. It's more rough and tumble than football. Give them some helmets and pads. You'll see armpits hanging from tree limbs by the end of the first game. But no, we got everybody, all these other countries standing out. Oh, come out and play soccer, America. Tra-la-la-la-la-la. Kiss my cracker butt. Look at Europe. What a bunch of sad sacks. They're standing there while mobs, they're being invaded. Nearly all the people, nearly all the refugees, my ass. Nearly all of them are young men of military age. Their objective is obvious. I saw a photograph of the prime ministers of most of Europe. Most of these countries have the most problem. It's women in charge of their government and of their national security. They got rapists wandering the streets, just vulgar, vile, nasty. Acting like subhuman. Oh, we do not want to be mean to the poor little immigrants and refugees. They don't let their own people carry guns. They don't. They censor free speech. They're so pussified. They've got people in Great Britain trying to pass laws against people owning carving knives. Because you see, they banned all the guns, and yet murders kept happening. People getting stabbed, so we need to outlaw the knives to keep people safe. And now they're standing and rapists rolling through their streets. And what does the German chancellor say? She says, well, the women need to take precautions. The women shouldn't be out there in the street like that anyway. Just keep your distance. And thus, Europe completes its transformation into a gigantic vagina. There are men out there. Let's give them credit. Some of the local hooligans, the bikers and stuff in Germany. They're going out in groups, delivering curb stompings to these wandering Muslim rape gangs. It used to be a time when, Teutonic men, there's still a few Teutonic men out there who know how to defend their women. But, the vast majority of Europe is acting like a lost cause. Completely pussified. I hear somebody, oh, you think you're such a manly man? I don't see you going out there in the street kicking people's ass. Like, no. I'm a 44-year-old fat man who can barely walk. Haagen-Dazs kicked my ass years ago. All I can do is I say, I've got to, I hope to God I would have the moral fiber. If I heard somebody being robbed or assaulted or raped in my neighborhood, I hope and I pray to Jesus I would have the moral fortitude to pick up a gun and go out and intervene in whatever way I could, instead of sitting around like a pussy, waiting for somebody with a badge and a flashy light to come rolling in and save me and my neighbor. I hope to God that it never comes to that either. But I hope and pray that if it ever did come to that, that I would be able to behave like a man. I just stand there like a bunch of French popcorn farts watching it happen. We are run in this country right now by people who want to turn us into the worst of Europe. And they will watch us bleed and starve and die in the streets and praise themselves for the glorious work they have accomplished. liberalization of our country has been paralleled by its feminization, and that is not by accident. Women are more susceptible to the lies of socialism because it promises what women instinctively crave: security, safety. Or the illusions thereof, anyway. A free capitalist Christian society is one of independence, autonomy, self-reliance, free will, patriotism, loyalty, and individuals choosing to act on behalf of their neighbors of their own free will, not being coerced into it by a government system. It is a mathematical fact. Free societies give out more in charity voluntarily than progressive liberal societies do through government grants and handouts. To say nothing of charity itself, where in the case of, you look at it's run down records. Conservative politicians, in particular, it's been a matter of record for years that conservative politicians tend to be incredibly generous to various organizations and fundraisers and so forth. Meanwhile, politicians like the Clintons, who are literally worth tens of millions a year, they consider themselves bending over backwards if they make a few $1,000s in donations every decade or so. Seriously, the average progressive politician makes more money than the average conservative one does. Often 4 or 5 times to 10 times, and their charitable record, their record on charitable giving, they make 10 times as much and give out 1/10 as much. And they call conservative politicians greedy and selfish. It's amazing how prosperity and freedom tend to combine with compassion for one's neighbors and open charity. calling it a night. Legs are hurting. What I can do to see you again tomorrow night. Pick up where I left off. As always, I'm open to take commissions, donations, pledges, book orders, DVD orders. They're all available on my homepage, www.rhjunior.com. You just go to whichever page is appropriate. They've got there are links up at the top, and buttons for PayPal donations and for Patreon and all that other stuff. Got the archives of the strips, if you'd like to read through those. Got eraser dust everywhere here. I will see you tomorrow. Try and pick up at the same time, 6 o'clock. Try and get a little bit more done. Say a prayer for me if you can, because I'm struggling with a lot of things, and I'm not very strong. Not anymore. Not that I ever was, but I'm slowing down. And it's wearing me out. If you would say a prayer for a little bit of healing on me and some more strength. More productivity, because I need all the help I get to amend my financial situation. In some ways, I'm in so deep I can't even see the top of the hole. Pray for each other too, because it's a rough world out there right now, and it's not getting easier on anybody anytime soon. Take care of each other, alright? Take care of yourselves. I'll catch you tomorrow. Good night.